Hey everybody, Janet McLean here. Want to talk to you today about something very important about real estate. Hopefully, you will never need to know this, but it's important that you know because someone you love or know may need this information. And it is about the current state of affairs with the mortgages, with job situations, with the economy as a whole. A lot of people have found themselves in a situation where they're finding it harder and harder to pay their mortgage. And we know when you don't pay the mortgage, you get in default, you end up in a foreclosure situation. And that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about with options that are available. Um, Foreclosure is not a be all end all. There are things that you can do, and there are choices and options that you have prior to that happening. And if there's any way at all to avoid that situation, of course, that's what we want to do. And I will tell you, full disclosure, there's no judgment with someone who is in that state because I have been there myself. Years ago, when I lost my job in healthcare, I couldn't pay my mortgage. It went on for months trying to find a job, and I ended up in a situation 6 o'clock in the morning. My house in Atlanta, the sheriff's deputy knocked on the door and just shoved a piece of paper in the door, and I'm like, "What is this?" And it was a notice that I was going to have my house sold at auction in roughly about 6 weeks from that date at the courthouse steps. They do it differently now, but back in the day, they literally stand at the courthouse steps and auction off homes that were in default. And it was terrifying, as you can imagine. I had been in this home for many years and I'd had some good equity built up, but I just could not find a job to pay the mortgage. Been through the savings, the whole thing, what a lot of you may be going through now. So I tell you that just because I want you to know that I understand completely, if you're in that spot, what you're going through, the fear, the anguish, the sleepless nights. I get it. So I'm here to tell you, having gone through that experience and now being in the real estate side of it, I understand ways and options and things that you can do to minimize the situation as far as financially, or I guess maximize the situation, however you want to look at it, but to minimize the damage that it's going to do financially, to your credit, to your just peace of mind, all those things. And there are some things out there that you can do. And one of those things is that I will caution you not to wait. If you're in a state where you know that you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage, you are not able to find a job, things are going really badly, and you just don't know what you're going to do, pray. I did a lot of that. But the other thing too is not to wait, because what you want to do typically, and I did, was to just put your head in the sand and pray for that miracle that's going to just pop up and save the day. And in doing so, you delay the situations of those things that you have control over. Trust me when I tell you, the bank does not want the house. They don't want the real estate because it's a burden to them. They have to sell it if things go badly. They would rather have some way that you can pay. And what happens oftentimes is when the bank starts sending notices or making calls or whatever they're doing to notify you or to get in touch with you, then people kind of put their head in the sand and just, ignore it. And that's the worst thing to do. It's the hardest to reach out and talk to them and call them. So that's why I'm here. As far as trying to help you be an intermediary, I can help you walk through some of that stuff and just to give you encouragement overall. The other thing too is if they can work with you on some sort of different kind of payment, maybe a minimized payment, maybe a delayed payment. They're all different in the things that they're willing to do, and it also depends on what their situation is with how much inventory they have. So the first step is really to call the bank, to respond to them. I'm in this situation. I'm trying to get out of it. I'm trying to make my payments or whatever, and see what they can do to work with you to help you make that happen. The second thing is, if they're not willing to, then consider how much equity you have in your house and if it is a good option for you to sell it quickly, to get out of it, to get your equity out of it, more importantly. And then to take that equity where you can either go buy something smaller, depending on how much you have, go to rent something for a period of time, go live with mom and dad, um, whatever you can do in terms of making sure that you get as much money out of that house as you can. Another option would be to downsize. Like I was saying, if you get the equity and consider downsizing, you can do that relatively easily, relatively quickly, depending on what you're looking for. Um, and that is going to be something that will preserve you and your family's safety and security. The other thing it does in terms of getting out of the house, either selling or whatever, is going to preserve your credit, because at some point, and I will assure you, this is not a lifelong sentence, the situation that you're in, because at some point you're going to want to buy again. You're going to want to buy a car, buy a house, buy a whatever when you're on the other side of all this, and it's going to be important that you preserve your credit if at all possible. The main thing to do, and then there are options we can talk about. If you want to give me a call, if you want to send me a text, we can talk about some of those things, and I can walk you through some options and just flesh out maybe some other ideas that you may have that you're just kind of right now too scared to even think about, because you don't really have that creative flow when you're really scared about your situation. But the main thing is to get out as fast as possible, because if the bank steps in, once they step in terms of being what's called a short sale, they then take part ownership, because they are obviously part owner since they're giving you the loan. And then it becomes a really tough situation. They have to be involved in the decision if you decide to sell it. Right now, if you're in default and the bank has not sent you a notice of short sale, then you can sell it, and just you make that decision, whoever's on the deed, whoever's on the contract. If the bank steps in, like I say, then the short sale becomes they're a part of that whole decision. That may delay things, it may make it harder, but most importantly, you won't get any of your proceeds. You won't get any equity, you'll be out of it. Short sales typically are those things where they're going to sell the house or agree to sell the house for less than what the loan is. Short the loan is why they call it short sales. So once that happens, they're not going to give you any of your equity. They're going to take as much as they can. Sometimes I've even heard when things were really bad years ago and this was going on, they would give maybe the sellers enough money to move the furniture, and that was it. So you're not going to recover anything if we get to that point. So you want to at least understand your options, know what you can do, what you need to take care of in terms of any paperwork and those kinds of things, and prepare. You certainly want to hope for the best, but you want to prepare for the worst, and make sure that you can get out of your house the equity and as much value, and save your credit if at all possible. I will tell you the end of my story was that I finally told my parents that I was going through this situation. I mean, they knew I was out of a job, but they didn't know I was in such trouble, that I'd gone through savings and all these things. And so my dad, God bless him, wrote a check to get me caught up. I was only 3 months behind. Nowadays, they let it go longer. But, and at the same time, it was a perfect storm where I got a job. I was able to go to the bank and say, look, I'm going to get things caught up. Here's enough to get me up to date. And they modified the loan. It's called a loan modification. So they're just options that the bank, if they're willing to work with you, can do to keep you in your home, or if not, for you to get out as soon as possible. There is an option called, I've forgotten the name of it, where you just give up the keys and walk away from it. No harm, no foul, and the bank takes it back. So just understand that you are not alone, because there are plenty of people in this situation right now, and that you do have choices, but let's find out what those are for you, the best choices, and see what we can do to help you make the best of a bad situation. So give me a call. I've got my number there. Give me a text message, email me, either way, anything is fine, and let's talk about what you have and what you can do and get you the best situation possible. Hope to hear from you soon. Hope you have a great day, and I hope this has been helpful to you. Take care.